"You can't bring that thing in here. This is first class," Sophie snapped, her voice sharp enough to turn heads. Amara didn't respond. She simply adjusted the denim wrap around her violin and looked down, trying not to let the sting show. It wasn't the first time someone looked at her and assumed the worst, but somehow this one cut deeper. She had boarded quietly at JFK, her boarding pass scanned without issue. Seat 2A. A window seat gifted by her aunt after Amara won a silent music scholarship. Her hoodie sleeves were pulled over her hands, gripping the case like it was life itself. The violin wasn't expensive. It wasn't even in perfect condition, but it was hers. And it used to be her mother's. The cabin around her was sleek, white leather, brushed steel, curated calm. But Sophie Brennan, the blonde attendant with perfect posture and rehearsed charm, saw something out of place. Not the violin, Amara. "I said this isn't allowed in cabin seating," Sophie continued, tone tightening. "You need to check that instrument or move to coach." Her voice wasn't just authoritative, it was personal. Amara raised her eyes slowly. "It's my carry-on. It meets FAA regulations. I already cleared it with the gate agent." Her voice was calm, careful. Sophie scoffed. "Let me see that boarding pass." She didn't need to ask anyone else. No one else was questioned. Just the black girl with the instrument. And as Sophie grabbed the pass from Amara's hand without waiting, a man across the aisle lowered his newspaper, watching, silently. But what Amara said next froze the entire row. "I'd like to speak with the captain," Amara said, her voice steady but low. The words didn't shout, they didn't threaten, but they made Sophie blink, just once, as if slapped with something invisible. "Excuse me?" she asked, her voice suddenly quieter, but laced with disbelief. "I said," Amara repeated, "I'd like to speak with the captain before you move me or touch my property again." A ripple passed through the cabin. Not loud, not chaotic, just a shift. A few heads turning, a man adjusting his seatbelt a little slower, a woman glancing up from her Kindle. The silence wasn't comfortable anymore. It was tight. Sophie forced a smile. "That's not how this works. Passengers don't get to demand things." Amara didn't argue. She reached slowly into her jacket and pulled out her phone. Her thumb tapped twice. Down in the terminal below, her aunt, former federal music advisor and now head of cultural compliance at FAA East, read the message without blinking. "She wants to take the violin, claims I don't belong here." There was no emoji, no explanation, no plea. Just truth. Back on the plane, Sophie turned toward the front galley, muttering something under her breath. Amara stayed seated. She didn't cry, she didn't shift. Her hands stayed on the violin. In seat 2B, the man who had been watching finally spoke, so quietly only Amara could hear. "She used to say that too, your mother, before concerts." Amara turned her head slowly. She hadn't told anyone who she was. So how did he know? "You knew my mother?" Amara whispered, her voice barely above a breath. The man nodded slowly. "Celeste Lewis. I produced her last Denver concert. She dedicated the encore to her daughter, said one day you'd take her place." Amara blinked fast. The air in the cabin felt thinner. Her grip on the violin loosened, just slightly. That was years ago, before everything, before the night her mother collapsed backstage and never got back up. Sophie returned abruptly, unaware. "Captain says if it becomes an issue, we'll settle it after takeoff. For now, store that thing, or I'll store it myself." "She's not a threat," the man said firmly, surprising everyone, including Amara. "And that thing is a Grayson V series, hand-restored. It should never leave pressurized cabin." His voice had changed, confident, authoritative. Sophie flushed. "And who are you again?" "Thomas Enright, board member, National Music Conservatory. Also, FAA Cultural Liaison. He pulled out his badge. The mood shifted instantly. Amara didn't move, didn't smile. She just kept watching, letting the moment unfold. Then the cabin lights dimmed briefly. The captain's voice crackled over the speaker. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're currently experiencing a minor delay. Please remain seated. We'll update shortly." Amara felt it in her bones. Her aunt had acted. Sophie turned pale, backing away slightly. Her certainty dissolved like fog under heat. But the real reckoning hadn't even begun yet. A quiet knock on the cockpit door. Then a voice through the intercom, calm, clipped. "Ms. Brennan, the captain would like a word, now." Sophie hesitated, then stepped forward, face flushed, heels clicking faster than usual. The other attendants kept their eyes down. No one spoke. Inside the cockpit, she was handed a headset. A woman's voice came through, measured and cold. "This is Elaine Lewis, FAA Cultural Compliance Division. I'm responding to a discriminatory escalation involving a minor and a carry-on instrument. Do you confirm you singled out the passenger in 2A for inspection?" "I didn't single her out. She had an object," I thought. "Did you inspect the cello case in seat 1C or the golf bag in 3D? Silence. "No," Sophie finally whispered. "Did the passenger raise her voice, refuse instructions, break protocol?" "No." "Then why was she the only one challenged?" "I thought she didn't." "Didn't what?" "Didn't look like she belonged there." There it was. The headset went quiet. Then came the final instruction. "You will walk back to seat 2A, apologize clearly and audibly, and then you will sit down, off duty, until landing. This will be documented." Sophie's legs shook as she exited. Her polished control cracked. When she reached Amara, her voice trembled. "I apologize. I misjudged you." Amara looked up slowly. Her voice was soft. "No, you judged exactly who I am. You just didn't think I mattered." And in that silence, the entire plane leaned in, finally hearing what it had ignored. The plane remained grounded. No wheels moved. No cabin announcements resumed. Just a deep, echoing quiet. Amara closed her eyes. For a moment, she heard her mother's voice. Not words, just the hum she used to sing while tuning this very violin backstage. A lullaby of presence. She stood slowly. Passengers turned. Some in shame, some in awe. She didn't look at them. She walked to the front of the cabin, stood in the aisle, and gently unwrapped the denim cloth. A fine scratch ran along the violin's side. The same scratch her mother never had the heart to fix. Amara raised the bow. No speech, no permission. Just one breath. And then she played one note. Soft, vibrating through the aluminum frame. Not loud, not impressive. Just full. Alive. The note her mother used to end every performance with. A note of arrival. When it faded, the silence was heavier than ever. Not uncomfortable, reverent. Sophie sat frozen, eyes glossy. She didn't speak. She couldn't. The captain exited the cockpit and gave a respectful nod. Amara didn't bow. She didn't explain. She returned to her seat, packed the violin away, and sat down. A woman behind her whispered, "I've never heard a single note say so much." Amara smiled faintly. Later, when the flight resumed, no one asked her for an autograph. No one dared make small talk. But the respect was louder than words. And when she disembarked, her aunt was waiting. No badge, just open arms. "Today," Amara said softly, "I didn't play for applause. I played for memory."